Shrimed Bhagavad Gita, chapter number 6, verse number 16 and 17 together. But 17 beholds the basic pivot around which both the verses revolve. Yukta har viharasya, yukta cheshtasya karmasu, yukta swapnava bodhasya yoga bhavati dukkha. Without wasting even a second, I embark upon this particular part of the verse, yoga bhavati dukkha. Yoga eliminates all pain, all suffering, all grief of a human life. This is a very firm declaration made by our ancient master, Adiguru Muni Vedvyas. What is the objective of yoga? Generally understood as mere exercises, postures, asanas, pranayam, etc., is primarily too broad and too encompassing that much comes under the term yoga. Yoga talks about enjoyment of a limited self with the higher self, where the cosmic mind beholds the limited infinitesimal spark within a human. The unnoticeable spark within a human, when is able to kiss and touch the realms of the infinity, the cosmos, that is yoga. That enjoyment, that entanglement, that immersion is yoga. And here it says, yoga bhavati dukkha. Whosoever aspires or treads upon the path of yoga is able to eliminate all pain, all suffering, all misery, all grief. The word dukkha, this primarily gives the understanding of eliminating all pain and suffering. What is the pain? What is the suffering? People who bear and possess all powers of the world, maybe the mightiest power of governance, wealth, having support from people, knowledge, physical strength, if they have everything within them, should they be considered as conclusive, complete, accomplished? No, that is not so. The deficiency of the system in the life of a human is that whatever you may be able to possess, but inconclusiveness, that aspect of being unaccomplished remains. Maybe in the state of a suspended mind, maybe in the state of an uncertainty prevailing and pervading one's seat of awareness. Even if you have everything that I have named just a while ago, even after having all of that, well in possession of everything, yet people experience, as we have noticed, people experience a strange kind of a uncertainty, a hollowness within. So pain does not necessarily mean something which is creating agony. No, it does not confine. Any inconclusiveness, any aspect of being unaccomplished is a pain, is a dukkha. So dukkha has to be understood in a larger context. Each one of us have our own kind of a dukkha. There may be people with different backgrounds, at different states, with different kind of achievements, but all have their own special distinctive kind of a dukkha. Being able to stay where they are, maintain that uncertainty, that anxiety, that concern, that state of suspension is also a dukkha. Till you are in the physical dimension, interacting with the world, dukkha exists. Even if you transcend from this physical dimension to the subtle one, and you are not evolved, according to the great masters, dukkha remains, and we reincarnate with all of that understanding. Yoga is the way, yoga is the mode, yoga is the process through which a limited existence enjoins the higher existence in order to relieve oneself from all dukkha, from being unaccomplished, from uncertainty to some conclusiveness and certitude. That is yoga. I am just talking in the capacity of a teacher who has read the subject. But I am not accomplished. But I have read what the accomplished masters have mentioned under different texts. Those who evolve to those extents, how do they feel? Nothing changes outside. Whatever change transpires, it is within the seat of their awareness and understanding. Things outside may not change, may not alter, but the impact they emanate, the adversity situations, certain other adversarial factors, they are not able to infringe into their harmony, into their state of mind, where they experience a dissolution of a higher kind. They remain totally unscathed, immune. And as the great masters mention, that it is through yoga that one is able to rise above the vicious cycles of dukkha that keeps on perpetuating. Another word which has a very pertinent mention in this verse is Yukta. One thing is clear, the objective of yoga is to relinquish one's awareness from dukkha. Another is, who is eligible for that? Who can accomplish in the dimension of yoga, in the field of yoga? Yukta. Who is Yukta? The easiest word I can corroborate to this term is the most appropriate one. The most appropriate, the appropriate. Let me just mention appropriate. What is appropriate? It says the one who is most appropriate and apt in the dietary aspects. One who is most appropriate and apt in the aspect of one's conduct. One who is most appropriate and apt at the end of one's efforts. And the one who is most appropriate and apt in sleep and awake, state of being awake. It necessarily does not mean diet cannot be confined to mere the food intake. Yes, food intake is a major part of our diet. But we merely do not intake food alone. We also intake at the subtle end various thoughts, inspirations, ideas. We don't consume ideas? Yes, we consume ideas. We not only consume food, we also consume ideas. We consume air. All these, after their own consumption, lead to different kind of results. If you continue to consume bad thoughts, yes, you consume bad thoughts, which means you interact with them. It means that you pay your attention and your time to them. It means that you allow them to be seated within your awareness. So you are a consumer of that. When you are watching a movie, you are a consumer. You are consuming a story. You are consuming a plot which has been well recorded, scripted and recorded enacted before you and now being presented before you, sorry. So you're consuming it. So dietary aspects, ahar, cannot be confined to mere food. One who is appropriate and is also in the pursuit of yoga of his or her kind, yoga necessarily cannot confine to the consciousness. Yoga also means if you have any resolve, if you have any objective for your own life, in order to accomplish your resolution, your objective, and to be successful in that, it is necessary that you adopt a balanced, the most appropriate aspects of your diet, of food and thought both. I'm confining it into food and thought. Everything is all inclusive. The ideas, imagination, etc. Everything comes into that. Whatever you're listening, you're consuming. So diet would be all inclusive for that. If you have to cherish in your own particular objective, resolve, you also need to understand the way your most appropriate conduct should be. What should be the most appropriate, the most balanced conduct in line with, which is most cohesive, in consonance with your objective, has to be determined by you and yourself. A thoughtful probe within one's own self shall be able to reveal and unravel all that should not exist and all that must be imbibed. It furthers to say, in the service to your objectives, yoga in service to your objectives, most appropriate efforts must be made. What are inappropriate efforts? Inappropriate efforts cannot be merely the one you should not be doing and you are doing. No, just does not confine to negation. It also means that even if you are exaggerating or you are going overboard, adopting a more extremist attitude within towards your own efforts, even if the right efforts are being done with an extremist attitude, may not be concluded as yukta, may not fall under the ambit of appropriateness. Bodybuilding is one of the foremost subject to understand this aspect. If you have to build your body, build your muscles in particular form, as bodybuilders do, they have to undergo a very strict, regulated, balanced diet and exercise. Diet and efforts, I can say. Efforts. Anything which is unregulated, is in extreme aspects, will never allow them to build the kind of muscles they certainly wish to have and project. So there has to be an appropriateness at the end of the efforts. Forget about the negation aspect. It's about the most righteous one even have to be with appropriateness. Then it talks about sleep and the state of awakeness. It does not confine to the physical aspect, sleeping for 4 hours or sleeping for 9 hours. No, it equally means more than that. It also means that there has to be a rationale drawn, a balance drawn for any seeker of his own respective objective. Yoga is more encompassing over here. It also encompasses not only the spiritual pursuit, but also your worldly objectives as well. You have to understand that in service to your pursuit, your objective, what are the subjects that you must be able to sleep upon, for what duration, and what are those subjects that you should be more aware about. Awake means awareness. More aware about. And what are the limits of the awareness? You have not to stretch even to be more aware about certain aspects or to sleep more upon certain aspects. There has to be a balance drawn even to the subjects that come in the pursuit you're through, that your being able to keep the subjects away from your notices, the duration has to be defined and balanced. And the subjects to be well under your awareness, the schedule, the time, the limits have to be well defined. In a way, yoga talks about a subject that the world experienced around 30-40 years ago. The subject of TQM, total quality management. The subject of equitable awareness, which talks about balance. Quality management was given this word T because entirety must be encompassing. Unless that entirety is there, that balance, that appropriateness, that aptness is there, a growth that can be lasting, that could sustain, cannot be promised or assured. So yoga here wants to reveal before any seeker of his own individual pursuit about the balance one has to learn, understand and practice in service to their objective under 5 primary factors. I say them 4 because sleep and awake, they are almost 2 sides of the same coin. Although while mentioning there are 5, but actually there are 4. These 4 factors have to be probed, dissected, synthesized and understood, that in service to my pursuit, what are the imbalances that I am performing in dietary ends, which does not confine to food intake alone, intake of the thoughts, etc. as well. What are the imbalances that I am doing through my conduct, which also means the way I communicate, the way I respond, the way I perform, the way I regulate my day, dispensation of all affairs into my daily routines, and the imbalances which I am performing or executing through my different efforts. And of course, the kind of inertia or the kind of slackness, laziness, lethargy that I assign towards certain subjects which I should not, and the kind of over-exaggeration or I go overboard on certain subjects where I should be able to confine. Things that I should be including in my dispensation and things that I should be reducing with their ambits into my dispensation. To draw that balance, to be able to draw that balance is Yukta. One who is Yukta is the right incumbent, is the most eligible, who is going to tread upon, progress upon his or her kind of an effort towards their objective. Spiritual as well. Not spiritual alone, spiritual as well. So the principle is beyond any defiance to almost all sectors of human life. Of course, the primary objective here is to talk about one's own inner evolution, the growth within. But confinement of this principle is not to that aspect alone. It equally encompasses the entire life of a human, all objective that one human can give to one's own self. So the great master of the ancient times had well detailed that yoga is the path through which one can relinquish pain, suffering, misery, that hollowness, that uncertainty. Yoga is the path for which the righteous incumbent is, one who can certainly gather growth and evolution, is the one who is most appropriate in all of these aspects. And the aspects have to be understood in detail, because Generally, what we consume in the form of diet should not be merely limited to the food intake alone. It has to be more expansive, EXPA. The same goes for conduct efforts and sleep and the state of being awake as well. And the verse number 16 is merely a mention about all this, but well handled and explained in verse number 17. It is therefore that we brought both the verses beside each other at the same classroom, and we started with the verse number 17 because the understanding of 16 is served in detail with procedure in verse number 17. I hope we have been able to do little justice to the understanding of this verse through this live classroom. Hope to be able to do more in the coming classrooms. Till then, Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om.